Thank you, ladies, for the performance of the glowing flowers. Fitting start to this very special evening. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second annual Climate Control Awards, brought to you by Climate Control Middle East magazine. My name is Jeff Price, and I'll be your MC for the evening. The theme of the awards this year is self-actualization. In short, it calls for the need to aim for the sublime, especially while in the midst of the global economic downturn. And we're gathered here to celebrate the champions of the industry here this evening. Those that have shone during these uncertain times. I didn't think I would be uttering those words, uncertain times, when I was first sent here on assignment, a 3-month assignment, by my agent in London back in 1995. I've returned 3 times since. My last return was 8 years ago in 2004, and I've continued to see incredible growth in all industries, my own industry in media, supporting your industry here this evening. Two things that I've learnt about the United Arab Emirates and this region. We mentioned uncertain times. I was told back in 1995 to expect the unexpected. And then I was told, almost in the same breath, same, but different. And now for a little more of the same, but yes, different. Because in these uncertain times that we are experiencing in 2012, there are amongst us champions of the industry. We are here to salute you all. It now gives me great pleasure to invite to the stage Mr. B. Surrender, the Editorial Director and Associate Publisher of CPI Industry, the publishers of Climate Control Middle East, and the producer of the awards, for the official introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, B. Surrender.
Thank you, Jeff. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second annual Climate Control Awards. Every business has aspiration milestones in a financial year. In the build-up to the awards, I got the feeling that this exercise and evaluation, though only a year old, has quickly become one of the milestones. And today, when I see so many of you in this hall, I do feel delighted, because I think it's an affirmation that this particular awards exercise really does matter and that you value this awards ceremony. So thank you so much, and we shall respect the trust that you have placed in us. The theme of this year's award ceremony is self-actualization. Every business has an internal rhythm that it needs to listen to. Paradigm-shifting events like the global economic downturn affect the rhythm, and thus there is a need for realigning the very foundations. In the midst of the turmoil and shifting sands, there is the great danger that businesses will repeatedly focus their energy and time on issues that perhaps they ought not to be so concerned about when you compare the broader business activities, the broader business challenges there are. So the purpose of self-actualization is to overcome the gross activities. When I said overcome, the need is to, of course, address them, but then evolve quick response mechanisms to those challenges so that the larger time is spent on more pressing issues that will lead to innovation in technology and business practices, issues that will help companies race to a world-class level. And of course, those companies that have already attained that pedestal, to make sure that they remain there. So the theme self-actualization thus became a vehicle to encourage the HVACR industry. For the 2012 awards, we identified 8 broad categories, and within them 26 specialized categories. The aim was to make sure that we covered all the aspects there are in the industry, and also at the same time respect the sentiments of the industry. When I say sentiments, at various conferences that I've been to, I've heard people from the industry talking about issues of real concern. One of them, if I may say, is a better cooperation between the MEP industry and the architecture industry. Many in the MEP industry felt that if the architecture firms involved them from the inception of a project, then they could come up with more energy efficient solutions. The basic need was for collaboration from the inception. And this led us to think that we ought to have a specialized category on architecture and HVACR. But sad to say, we did not receive any entries for that particular category. Perhaps I think it was the novelty of it, so that perhaps took people by surprise. So we couldn't make much progress on that. But the reason I mention this is that we have our heart in the right place, and we wanted to be as inclusive as possible. And hopefully next year we will be receiving entries to that particular category. Overall, we received entries to, while we started out with 26, we eventually received entries for 16 categories. And it was quite heartening because, like I said, some of the categories were quite challenging, and we introduced those categories, but also hoping that people would respond. But in all, yes, it was 16 categories. And in the final analysis, as I said, it was quite heartening. The judges for the awards were from varying backgrounds from within the industry. And in a situation we anticipated, some of them were from companies that sent in entries to the awards. Needless to say, the entries they judged were mutually exclusive from what they sent. We at CPI, along with KPMG, ensured that, and also the confidentiality demanded. Even going as far as to hold different meetings with the judges so that the ones whose companies sent entries did not know which among the entire group of judges were evaluating their entries. In all, the awards exercise has been one of credibility and merit, so much so that much as we wanted to include more categories, there also arose situations where some of the entries did not meet the minimum benchmark level that the judges had established. And so those categories, in fact, had to be disqualified. We had to discard them. But of course, it's in our interest to make sure that we are more inclusive and have more categories. But I think at the end of the day, merit and credibility won the battle. The judges strictly applied the minimum benchmark in shortlisting the candidates and in deciding on the winners. This led to a situation where in some categories, only one entry made it to the nomination stage. That's not very exciting from an awards point of view, but then we preferred to make sure that the quality was not compromised, and so we stuck to that particular line of thought. I shall not go on and on. I mean, I think it's suffice to say that the awards exercise has. I must reinforce this fact that it's it's been through a filter of merit and credibility. And we have been quite thorough in our evaluation process. And of course, KPMG has stood by us and helped us in this process. Of course, they'll be speaking later and they'll be describing some of the systems and processes that were employed. Now, about the results. Now, I know that we're all looking forward to the results. And for this, I shall give a brief anecdote. On the eve of the 1992 Olympic Games in Barcelona, a reporter asked the Nobel laureate, His Holiness Dalai Lama, what he thought of the Olympic Games. And his reply was a one-liner, and he said, "More will lose than win." Sadly, that is the case with almost any contest, any award ceremony, and that goes for this award ceremony as well. But please do take heart that we have among us this evening some winners who did not quite make it last year. And I think they rose to the occasion, and this time they gave a better performance, and so some of them have turned out to be winners this time. And in that way, I think this awards ceremony is an opportunity at redemption. With that, I end my speech, and my best wishes to all the candidates, and I hope you enjoy the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Surinder. Now, as he mentioned, the panel of judges worked tirelessly to find the winners of this year's awards. You'll have an opportunity to see them and hear from at least one of them in a few moments. But before that, you also heard Surinder mention KPMG. And it now gives me great pleasure to invite Mr. Faraz Saeed of KPMG, the knowledge partners for the awards. As part of their role, KPMG prepared the framework for evaluation of entries, and based on information I have been privy to, have done a wonderful job. I'll let you hear from Mr. Faraz on the systems and processes involved. Ladies and gentlemen from KPMG, would you please welcome to the stage Mr. Faraz Saeed.
Hi, thank you very much for that very kind and warm introduction. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank CPI Industry Magazine for inviting KPMG here today. It is an honor for us to be knowledge partners for these very prestigious and significant awards for what is an important industry in this region. Now, as knowledge partners, KPMG's involvement, as has been mentioned, was to develop the framework to assess the nominations, to help collate the scores, and to assist CPI in judging the winners. And notwithstanding the comments made earlier by Surinder, the overall standard was very high. And I could talk to you in great detail about the complicated spreadsheets and discussions and things that went on, but probably that's not what you're here for. So instead, let me talk to you a little bit about how we see the future of the industry. I think climate control is a particularly critical industry in this part of the world where temperatures in summer can exceed 50 degrees. The industry plays a critical role in the construction sector, with some estimates saying that up to 70% of a building's energy supplies are used for air conditioning alone. And as we move forward to a more fuel and carbon efficient future, the climate control industry is one that will become increasingly in the public focus. The development of the industry is tied to the growth of the construction industry. Yet despite the recent slowdown in the construction sector, the climate control industry has shown consistent growth in the region of 12% per annum between 2008 and 2011. And with signs of economic recovery on the horizon, we think the future of the industry looks bright. But as an industry, we cannot rest on our past laurels. The future will be different from the past. Driven by economic concerns and by better awareness, information, and education, consumers and governments are becoming increasingly demanding. People are no longer happy to work in outdated designs or pay for inefficient, environmentally harmful technologies. I think in the future, the industry will need to innovate to keep up with the market, the demands of customers, and the demands of regulators. I think in the words of CPI, the industry does need to reach for the sublime. And thankfully, due to the hard work of all people around the world and many people in the room today, the industry has done that. We're seeing innovation in fields such as air conditioning equipment, building systems integration and building automation, and energy management. Everyone in the industry is responsible for these improvements, whether it's the manufacturers, whether it's the designers, whether it's the engineers or the architects. And many of these people are sat here in the room today.